Yo, yes now, bless now. Don't forget the rest now. Dezrocksteady at King of the Pit TV signing in. We're gonna learn today, alright, people. Brett, I'm from England. I never went to CBGBs. I would have liked to, but I went to America like once when I went to New York. To be fair, CBGBs was in New York. My mother could have took me to CBGBs. My father could have took me to CBGBs. Instead, we went to one of the Twin Towers. I know that much. And we went to Trump Tower in Manhattan. I can't even remember it. I was that young. So that was the last time I went to America. But here we are. The place to be back in the day. We're going to learn a little bit about it. I know nothing about it. Aside from footage I've seen, aside from little stories and references in songs. And here we are. So if you disagree with anything, if you are a New Yorker, if you've attended CBGBs before, let me know. And let's open some good discussions. So CBGB was a New York City music club, opened in '73 by Hilly Crystal in Manhattan's East Village. He was an American club owner, manager, and musician. And it states that it closed in 2006 over a rent dispute, so we're going to get into that. The club was previously a biker bar and before that a dive bar. I've heard dive bar, but I don't know what it is. It's a small, unglamorous, eclectic, old-style drinking establishment with inexpensive drinks. May feature dim lighting, shabby or dated decor, neon beer signs. Yeah, budget. Budget, eh? The letter CBGB were for country, bluegrass, and blues. Crystal's original vision, yet CBGB soon became a famed venue of punk rock and new wave bands like the Ramones, Television, Patti Smith Group, Blondie, and Talking Heads. From the early 80s onward, CBGB was known for hardcore punk. Sick! One storefront beside CBGB became the CBGB Record Canteen, a record shop and cafe. In the late 80s, CBGB Record Canteen was converted into an art gallery and second performance space, CB's 313 Gallery. CB's gallery was played by music artists of milder sound such as acoustic rock, folk, jazz or experimental music such as Da Da Da, Christine Young and Toshi Reagan, while CBGB continued to showcase mainly hardcore punk, post-punk, metal and alternative rock. 313 Gallery was also the host location for Alchemy, a weekly goth night showcasing goth, industrial, dark rock and dark wave bands. On the other side, CBGB was operating a small cafe and bar in the mid-90s which served classic New York pizza among other items. Now, I've heard New York's got the best pizza in the world. That's what I've heard. Best pizza in the world. Go get yourself a slice of New York pizza. What's all that about? What's all that about? Around 2000, CBGB entered a protracted dispute over allegedly unpaid rent amounts until the landlord, Bowery Residents Committee, sued in 2005 and lost the case, but a deal to renew CBGB's lease, expiring in 2006, failed. The club closed upon its final concert, played by Patti Smith, on October 15, 2006. CBGB Radio launched on the iHeartRadio platform in 2010, and CBGB Music Festivals began in 2012. 2013, CBGB one-time building 315 Bowery was added to the National Register of Historic Places as part of the Bowery Historic District. Cool. Right, so founding. CBGB was founded on December 10th, 73, on the site of Crystal's earlier bar, Hilly's on the Bowery, that he ran from 69 to 72. Initially, Crystal focused on his more profitable East Village. This guy was an entrepreneur. After Hilly's closure, Crystal focused on the Bowery Club. Its full name of CBGB and OMFUG stands for Country, Bluegrass and Blues, and Other Music for Uplifting Gormandizers. What the hell is a gormandizer? Although a gormandizer is usually a ravenous eater of food, what Crystal meant was a voracious eater of music. Crystal, that's ridiculous, isn't it? Crystal's intended theme of country blue. How weird that this became like the hub for hardcore punk music. Crystal's intended theme of country, bluegrass, and blues music, along with poetry readings, yielded to the American movement in punk rock. A pioneer in the genre, Ramones played their first shows at CBGB. And we've read about the Ramones. They were playing there, 50 times a year? Evolution. In 73, while the future CBGB was still Hilly's, two locals, Bill Page and Rusty McKenna, convinced Crystal to let them book concerts. In February 74, Hilly booked local band Squeeze to a residency. Yeah, I've had songwriting lesson from the writer of the Squeeze. If it's the same act, the Cool for Cats lot, playing Tuesdays and Wednesdays. The club, I don't know if it is, to be honest. If it's a local, I don't know. He was British, I thought. The club's changed. Squeeze was led by guitarist Maxwell, later with CBGB quasi house band The Revlons, which included Fred Smith of Television and J.D. Doherty of the Patti Smith Group. Although these bands did not play punk rock, they helped lay its foundation. I don't know all about Patti Smith, do you? The August 73 collapse of the Mercer Arts Centre left unsigned bands little option in New York City to play original music. Mercer refugees, including Suicide, The Fast, Ruby and the Rednecks, Wayne County, and the Magic Tramps, soon played at CBGB. In 74, on April 14th, in the audience of television's third gig were Patti Smith and Lenny Kaye, whose Patti Smith Group debuted at CBGB on February 14, 1975. Other early performers included the Dina Regine Band. Dennis Lepre was lead guitarist, as well as the Stilettos, which included Deborah Harry on vocals. The newly formed band Angel and the Snake, later renamed Blondie, as well as Ramones, arrived in 74. Mink DeVille, Talking Heads, The Shirts, The Heartbreakers, The Fleshtones and other bands soon followed. In 77, The Damned played the club, making the first time a British punk band had ever played in America. Wow, that's something, eh? You know what, I've never listened to The Damned. Are they worth checking out? Are they that good? People don't really reference The Damned, in my circle at least. During 75 and 76, Metropolis Video recorded some shows on film started in 1977. Metropolis Video filmmaker Pat Ivers and partner Emily Armstrong continued to record shows in a project called Advanced TV, later renamed Go Nightclubbing. Ivers and Armstrong's films are available at the New York University Fales Library. CBGB's two rules were that a band must move its own equipment and play mostly original songs, that is, no cover bands. Although regular bands often played one or two covers in a set, it happens. CBGB's growing reputation drew more and more acts from outside New York City. In 78, new wave songwriter Elvis Costello would open shows for the Voidoids, while the Police played at CBGB for their first American gigs. Meanwhile, CBGB became famed for Misfits, Television, Patti Smith Group, Mink DeVille, The Dead Boys, Dictators, The Fleshtones, The Voidoids, The Cramps, the B-52s. The B-52s have got an interesting history. I don't know too much about them, but they had a relatively punk, start to things. We need to check out the B-52s, eh? You know what? I only knew Love Shack. I thought it was an awesome song. Didn't like Rock Lobster, but somebody recommended me the tune Rome, and that was such a great track. So I need to check out B-52s. Blondie, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, The Shirts, and Talking Heads. Yeah, in the 1980s, hardcore punk's New York Underground was CBGB's mainstay. Named Thrash Day in documentary on hardcore. Named Thrash Day in a documentary on hardcore. Sunday at CBGB was Matinee Day, which became an institution, played from afternoon until evening by hardcore bands such as Reagan Youth, Bad Brains, Beastie Boys, Agnostic Front, Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law are playing next weekend at Blackpool's Rebellion Festival. Cro-Mags, Leeway, Warzone, Gorilla Biscuits, Sick of It All, Misfits, Sheer Terror. Sheer Terror played like last week at a place venue called the Packhorse. I see Sheer Terror. Sheer Terror are always here in England, always playing to this day. Stillborn and Youth of Today. 1990, violence inside and outside of the venue prompted Crystal to suspend hardcore bookings. Although CBGB brought hardcore back at times, CBGB's last several years had no formal bans by the genre. Right, rent controversy. In 2005, atop its normally paid monthly rent of 19 grand, CBGB was sued for some 90 grand in rent allegedly owed to its landlord. Don't blame him, 19 grand for rent. I mean, I don't own a business like that, so I couldn't tell you whether that was acceptable or not, and I don't know what the business was saying. That's crazy. Refusing to pay until a judge ruled the debt legitimate. Crystal claimed that he had never been notified of scaled rent increases accruing over a number of years, asserted by BRC's executive director Muzzy Rosenblatt, ruling the debt false that BRC had never properly billed a rent increase. The judge indicated that CBGB ought to be declared a landmark, but noted that Rosenblatt did not need to renew the lease, soon expiring. Rosenblatt vowed to appeal. Expecting Rosenblatt's resistance to lease negotiation, Crystal agreed that the rent ought to rise, but not to the 55 grand monthly that Crystal believed the BRC to want. A non-profit or corporation housing homeless above CBGB mostly through donations and government funding, the BRC had only one commercial tenant and raised its monthly rent to 35 grand. Crystal and the BRC reached an agreement whereby CBGB would leave by September the 30th, 2006. Planning to move CBGB to Las Vegas, Crystal explained, "When going to take the urinals, I'll take whatever I can." The mover said, "You ought to take everything and auction off what you don't want on eBay. Why not? Somebody will." I guess it's later days and your plans change and so forth. And if they're not paying the rent and they're struggling and so forth to, be in surplus to sort of deal with these situations, it might not have been like too profitable at this point. But I'm surprised that they didn't just move the venue within the same sort of district or in New York still, elsewhere. But but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was dead by now. You know what I mean? What we'll do is we'll continue on the next video. And we'll have a continue on and see if we can find any interesting bits and bobs in regards to the closure and the aftermath. So I'll see you on the flip side, people.